Recently on our series, Lessons in Leadership, our sister series, my colleague Mary Gamba and I interviewed Dr. Stanton Brown, who is Executive Director and Professor in the Practice of Leadership at the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, one of our higher ed partners. We talked to Dr. Brown about leadership today, how it's evolved, how he's evolved as a leader, and the importance of teaching leadership, frankly, to young people in colleges and universities. Some people argue and question whether university life, college life, higher ed is even relevant anymore. Well, it is in the eyes of Dr. Brown. And he talked about the work that needs to be done to help the next generation of leaders make a difference in a very complicated, challenging world we're living in. This is Dr. Brown from Seton Hall. Dr. Brown, great to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You got it. We see the Seton Hall logo behind you. And let me ask you this. You come to Seton Hall and the Buccino Leadership Institute, where I've taught and I've learned so much from your students there and your colleagues. You come from a very diverse background in corporate America and other places. Your philosophy and approach to leadership, developed by so many, who would you say, if you had to pick one, possibly two, the most significant influencers of your leadership approach and philosophy would be?
Oh, wow. I probably have two or three. Let me give you one at a time. One was my father, Sherman Brown Sr. And a big part of why I would, say he's a role model, was a role model for me, was just being able to lead through adversity. He and my mom raised three boys, through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I never heard a peep of a complaint from him. And so I think from a leadership perspective, being able to go through, whether it's crucible moments, downturns in your life, whatever it might be happening in the environment, but no one else knows that you're suffering, right? Because you're always being a servant, being the servant leader. So actually, I'll stay with that one because it's just been sort of a guiding point in my life. He left us over maybe 15 years ago, but it stays true to my heart about how I lead and leading the way he would.
The word grit, when you were talking about your dad, you didn't use the word, but it seems to me didn't complain no matter how tough times were. He had a tremendous amount of grit, and he imbued that in you. Long-winded way to get to this question. There are some who argue that younger people, college students today coming out, that they lack the, quote, grit needed to get through tough times because too many of us have told them too often how great they are, and they're not necessarily, a lot of generalizations here, I know, they're not great at hearing tough talk and tough conversations, and they don't have a lot of grit. I don't know if I buy it. What do you say, doctor?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's our fault. I also have a college age, junior, and sometimes we're protecting our kids so much, right? And I think with my dad, call it grit, call it resilience. It's sort of something that you learn as you grow up and go through experiences. And I think as parents, I spent some time in the K-12 industry, running charter schools and leading there. We want to protect them so much, but they need these experiences. So, I would say, and again, I've been so impressed with the students in our program at the Buccino Leadership Institute, and a lot of them have been through some stuff, and they've gotten that grit. Got a lot of things happened in their life before they got here that took that edge off. But others, need to go through some experiences, and some are going to go through it later in life, and some go through it early. But I'm also a believer in grit. It's kind of hard to teach. And that's why if you have, experiential learning, what we do here that sort of anchors our curriculum, can put you in those situations, at least in a somewhat safe environment before you go out in the real world. But I believe that's important, that you got to be resilient and have grit to be able to manage, changes in your environment.
If a global pandemic hasn't taught us the need for resilience and grit, I don't know what will. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is the connection between, we have our young adults. I know the Buccino Leadership Institute prides itself in taking students from different disciplines, right? So you're bringing them into this cohort, this group of students. Some may be a computer science major, some may be art, some may be an English major, some may be political science. What advice do you have for young adults today to remain open-minded to others' points of view, especially tied to leadership, because when you bring all those people into a room, there must be conflicting views. What is your viewpoint and what is your hope for the Buccino Leadership Institute in that regard?
Sure. That's a great question. Great point. Is so I have the belief, and I've been in a lot of different places, from insurance companies to big, banks and very small schools, that you try to run. And I would tell you that I would tell students that you have to honor the diversity of thought. And there's many aspects of diversity, but particularly diversity of thought, because you're going to learn from that. So respect that people have different ways, different routes to a solution. And I experienced that. I was trained to as a management consultant, is that this is how you help a client get there, and you get there pretty quickly, and you have different tools and methodology. And then when I jump into the K-12 industry and part of higher ed, they just think differently. No less smarter, maybe a little bit smarter than other folks I found in industry, but there's different routes to get there. So if you don't respect that, and as a leader, you're going to miss what the answer is, because the answer is all around you. And so I think that respecting the diversity of thought, and that's why we put our students in these interdisciplinary teams, Mary, so they could see how someone who's going to start in nursing, and then you have a finance person, they're together on a project, and they may come at it differently, right? Because they go through, there's just different ways, particularly as they go through their years here at Seton Hall, different ways they've been being taught to think. And in a leadership organization, I want you to be able to take all that in and then make decisions collectively, and then individually too, based on that diversity of thought, to come up with a really good solution.
Question, in your mind, what is the correlation, the connection, Dr. Brown, between being a great leader and being a solid, confident communicator under pressure?
Got you. It is almost one and the same, right? So you could be a great thinker, tactician, you have the answer, you made the calculation, you've done all this stuff. If you cannot communicate and influence people that you have a path to be able to follow, you're going to be dead in the water, right? And even, we see that in our politics and the world it's about how can I convince people, have the decision science behind me that I can present to folks who like to hear that type of stuff or read it, but also have people to be able to follow me. So if folks are not going to follow you, I don't care what type of answer you got, it's not going to work. If you are also, what the kids say, into your feelings, right? You caught some feelings. You're also, you're emoting, right? Along with everyone else, because you're in a crisis, is that folks can hear that you have a solution. And so I think being able to, and that's part of communication. That's part of, particularly with, our millennials and Gen Zs that it's claimed that their attention span is a lot shorter because of everything they're exposed to, is that how do I get people's attention right away? Yes. And the phone and knowing what's true, what's false, there's a lot of conflicting information. And just what do you do at that period of time? So it's very important to be an effective communicator. That's in your speech and how you write. You have to teach kids nowadays in college how to go back to writing and be able to write something, critically and have it believable. And then, your posture and the etiquette you take when you're inside a meeting, that folks see your executive presence and know that, the way you're standing, the way you're moving your hands, obviously what you put on the screen, if you're using PowerPoint, just makes sense and communicates that you have some sense of what the direction should be.
To Seton Hall University's credit and the Buccino Leadership Institute, the fact that they acknowledge the importance, regardless of what someone's major is, and they have this diverse group of students at the Buccino Leadership Institute, to understand the importance of having executive presence, as Dr. Brown said, particularly in pressure-filled situations. That is leadership. We thank you and all of your colleagues at the Buccino Leadership Institute and our great friends and partners at Seton Hall University. Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome. Wonderful to be here.
You got it. We'll see you right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 30 years in public broadcasting. Funding has been provided by PSEG Foundation, Newark Board of Education, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. The Turrell Fund, a foundation serving children. Wells Fargo. And by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by NJ.com. And by bestofNJ.com.
Life is unpredictable. Health insurance shouldn't be. For over 90 years, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey has provided quality, affordable health plans to New Jersey residents. We have served generations of New Jersey families and businesses and are committed to driving innovations that put you at the heart of everything we do. Our members are our neighbors, our friends, and our families. We're here when you need us most. Horizon, proud to be New Jersey.